How would you feel if a jury gave you $5 million to compensate you for the harms and losses and damages you incurred because of your doctor's carelessness? How would you feel? You want to know how you'd feel? Come join me for a moment as I share with you some great information. Hi, I'm Gerry Oginski. I'm a New York medical malpractice and personal injury attorney. And in today's video, I want to share with you feelings, your emotions. And I want to explain to you what's going to happen if a jury comes back and gives you $5 million as full compensation for all of the harms and damages and injuries that you suffered because your doctor was careless. The very first thing you're going to feel is elation. You're going to feel incredible. You're going to feel, oh my God, I can't believe this just happened. That's the very first response you're going to have. You might be a little confused because now as the jury is reading their verdict and they're telling you how much money you are to receive, you might be confused. You might be thinking to yourself, wait a second, did I just hear that right? Did I just hear that correctly? They just gave me $3 million for my pain and suffering in the past. And now they gave me $2 million for pain and suffering into the future. Oh my God. And now you're thinking, they just gave me $5 million. And then it's going to hit you. The light bulb's going to go off and you're going to be ecstatic. You're going to be thrilled. All those years of worrying how you're going to pay your bills, of worrying how you're going to pay your mortgage, and how you're going to pay your car payments, and how you're going to put your kids through school. Now you feel vindicated. You feel justified for that entire fight that you put up with for years and years, and for the fighting that you had to do because your doctor refused to accept responsibility for all the damages and injuries that you suffered, all because he was careless. You feel great. You feel wonderful. And then, all of a sudden, in the split moment, that's all going to vanish. Why? Because the defense lawyer, after hearing this verdict, now is going to jump up out of his seat and he's going to say, Your Honor, I object to this verdict. I ask that you throw out this verdict as being against the weight of the evidence. And now you're going to be looking around saying, what the hell just happened? What did this lawyer just say? He wants to throw the verdict out? And now you're going to be astonished. So you go from 1 second of feeling elated, incredibly amazed, incredibly thankful, to, oh my God, what just happened? And then you begin to think, why is he doing this? Can he do this? Is it possible? In a split second, you're going to say, is it really possible? The judge could throw out the verdict that the jury just came back with? The $5 million that they said you're entitled to? The answer is, yes, the judge could do that. And he could do that in a split second. The judge has the opportunity to do that. Will it happen? I don't know the answer to that. Every case is different, but the judge will have to make a decision based upon the attorney's request, based upon the evidence in the case, based upon the jury's verdict. Most of the time, the judge is going to turn around and say, you know what? The jury came back with a reasoned verdict. There is sufficient evidence to support this $5 million verdict. I'm going to leave the verdict as it is. And now when you hear that, you're going to feel great again. You're going to feel amazing. You're going to say, yes, you won again. So now you won just when the jury came back with their verdict. Now all of a sudden you were worried because the defense lawyer jumped up and tried to get your verdict thrown out. And then when the judge makes a decision in your favor that says, no, I'm leaving the verdict as it is, now you're like, yes, we won. But now let me ask you a question. Do you think that the doctor and his attorney are going to take out their checkbook and write out a check for $5 million right then and there and say, I'm sorry, Mrs. Patient, we didn't mean this to happen. Here's a check for $5 million. Please go have a good life. No, that's not what's going to happen. That's not how it works. That's not how any of it works. So how does it work? And importantly, how are you going to feel after you realize how it works? I'll tell you how you're going to feel. You're going to feel confused. You're going to feel angry. You're going to be upset. And let me tell you why. So now, after the judge has confirmed the jury's verdict, he's saying, no, I'm going to leave it alone. But the judge is then going to say, listen, defense counsel, if you want me to really consider this, I'm going to give you 30 days or 45 days to get the trial transcript and submit formal written papers to me explaining why you believe this jury should not have given this verdict and why you think that the verdict is inappropriate. And then he's going to give your lawyer, the plaintiff's attorney, some time to reply to those written arguments. And then, once those papers have been submitted to the judge will then have an opportunity to consider on papers formally whether or not to throw out your verdict. And now you're thinking, wait a second, the judge just ruled in my favor. The judge just said, that the verdict is going to stand. But now he's giving the defense lawyer and my attorney an opportunity to go ahead and fight it out on papers. And now, 60 days, 120 days, 90 days later, it's possible that the judge could change his mind? The answer is, yes, it is. Now, how's that going to make you feel, learning that the judge could change his mind down the road? It's going to make you upset. It's going to make you frustrated. It's going to make you angry. Why? Because this is a never-ending situation. Just because the jury has given you a verdict doesn't mean your case is over. Doesn't mean you're getting that money immediately. And now you get into a funk and you start to get depressed when you hear that information. And it's like, oh my God, this is an emotional roller coaster. You started out thinking this was the greatest day. Why? Because the jury gave you $5 million. A moment later, the defense wants your case thrown out. He wants the verdict thrown out. Now you're going back down. Then a few moments later, the judge says, yes, the verdict stands, and you're going back up on a high. And then you learn, oh my God, it's possible that your case could still get thrown out, or the verdict could get reduced or thrown out again, and you'll have to try the case all over again. And now you're going on this crazy emotional roller coaster. So, you know, you read in the newspaper that somebody was given $5 million for their injuries, whether it's a car accident matter or a wrongful death matter or even medical malpractice matter. And you're thinking in your mind, oh my God, how lucky they are. How incredible it is that they're going to get $5 million. Well, what you don't read in the papers, what you don't hear about in the news, is all of these activities that go on behind the scenes because the news media does not report on this. They don't report on all of these crazy gyrations that occur immediately after the verdict comes out. Instead, the only thing that the news media focuses on is the large jury verdict. They don't hear about the post-trial motions. They don't hear about the defense trying to dismiss and throw out your case even after the jury verdict. They don't hear about what goes on during the appeal process. None of that is what shows up in the newspapers or in the news. So people who are reading it think, oh my God, you got a $5 million verdict? Awesome, that's great. You just won the lottery, you just hit the jackpot. No, no, no. Your journey is just beginning. You thought it was the end. You thought going to trial was a simple matter of, hey, we put on our evidence, our testimony, we now show that we're entitled to a verdict, and that's the end of the case when the jury comes back with their decision. No, no, no. And now, that emotional roller coaster is going to continue, and let me tell you why. So now you learn that the judge may throw out your verdict. He now has the opportunity to reconsider his decision. And is it possible that he will? The answer is yes, it is possible. Can it happen? Yes, it has happened. Will it happen? I can't give you the answer to that because it depends on a lot of factors. If the defense is able to show that your verdict clearly is not justified, now the judge is going to have a very difficult time to say, hey, listen, you are not entitled to this verdict. In which case he may say, listen, I don't think you're entitled to this verdict. I'm throwing it out. I direct that all sides reappear to pick a new jury and start this case all over again. That's an option. Let's say the trial judge keeps the verdict as it is, and now the defense lawyer says, hey, we have to appeal. We don't believe that this verdict is justified. So now it's going to take a full year or maybe longer from the time that the appeal gets started until the appeal is resolved. And during this period of time, you're not going to be doing very much. Your attorney is going to be working vigorously behind the scenes to prepare legal papers, what we call legal briefs, to submit to the appellate court. That's the higher court. It's made up a panel of 5 judges, and they don't have a new trial. They don't talk to witnesses. There's no new testimony presented, but instead, the trial transcript has to be given to these 5 judges. And now the arguments have to be evaluated. And these panelists, these 5 judges, will have to listen to oral argument from each of the attorneys. And then they'll have a period of time in which to come to a decision. And they have many different options that they can reach in order to evaluate the appeal. They can decide that the defense is correct, that your verdict is not justified. In which case, they may say, okay, we're throwing out the verdict, and that's the end of the case. You're not entitled to anything. That's one option. On the other hand, they may say, you know what? We think that the verdict was incorrect, so we're going to reduce the amount of money that we think you should be getting. Now, if you agree to that, the case is over. Otherwise, if you don't agree to it, guess what? Everybody goes back for a new trial. And now you have to try the case all over again. How's that going to make you feel? You're going to be sitting there listening to your attorney tell you this information, and you're going to be thinking, oh no, I've got to spend another 2 weeks in court listening to the witnesses, going up and down every single day with your emotions? That's exactly correct. You're going to be angry. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to be pulling out whatever little hair you have left, like I do, right? Because it's going to be confusing, and it's going to be frustrating. So let's say the appellate court says, you know what? We don't believe this verdict was justified. We're throwing it out, and now everybody's going back for a new trial. Or they say, hey, we think that the first part of the trial was fine, where you were able to show that the doctor was careless and his carelessness was a cause of your injury. That part was fine. We think there was a problem with giving you money. So now they say, hey, we're just going to throw out the damages part of your trial. So now you're going to have a trial just on damages alone. You're going to have to pick a new jury, and they will be told that they are only to consider one thing. And what's that? Damages. They are going to evaluate the medical experts, and they are going to evaluate your treating doctors to decide what? How much money you are to receive for each element of damages that you're claiming. So they are designed to go ahead and give you money, and then it becomes a question of how much. And then you're going to be thinking, okay, but how is that going to make me feel? Well, knowing that you have to try this case only on the amount of money that you are to receive, now you should be feeling a little better. Now you should be thinking, okay, I'm going to be receiving some amount of money. But wait a second. Your attorney tells you, if the jury again gives you a tremendous amount of money, you know what's going to happen? The defense is going to jump up out of his seat, just like he did before, and say, Judge, I object to this verdict as being against the weight of the evidence. I ask you to throw out this verdict, and then you go through the same process all over again. What happens if the jury comes back with what you consider to be a reasonable amount? Let's say instead of asking for $10 million for all the harms and losses and injuries that you suffered, the jury comes back with, let's say, $500,000. And you're thinking, okay, at least that's some amount of money. Do you think the defense is going to be okay with it and turn around and say, you know what? We went through this whole process once. I'm not going to go through it again. It's such a pain in the ass. I'm incurring all these expenses. I'm generating all these bills for the insurance company to pay my fees. You know what? $500,000, we'll write you out a check and you'll call it a day. No, that's not what's going to happen. So when you hear that, your emotions are going down again. And then you're going to be frustrated. So you go through this entire process again. You have a trial on damages. The jury comes back and they give you $5 million again. How amazing is that? For the purposes of my discussion, they give you the same amount of money. So what happens next? You know what happens next, right? You're going to feel amazing. You're going to feel justified. You're going to feel vindicated. Yes, thank God they did it again. Yes, after 2 juries have now evaluated your damages, they both came to the same exact conclusion that you are entitled to this amount of money. Well, guess what? The defense attorney now jumps up out of his seat and says, Judge, I ask you to throw out this verdict as being against the weight of the evidence. And the judge says, you know what? I'm going to hold off on that decision. In fact, I'm going to deny your request based upon what the jury has evaluated. I believe that there's sufficient evidence and testimony to justify that verdict. And by the way, defense counsel, if you would like to pursue this further on these post-trial motions, I invite you to get the trial transcript, submit it with legal briefs, and you now have 60 days in which to get that information to me. And now the plaintiff's attorney, your lawyer, will then have a certain amount of time to reply. And then the judge will have the ability to go ahead and consider once again whether or not that verdict is appropriate based upon the papers that were submitted to him. And how's that going to make you feel? I'll tell you how you're going to feel. You're going to feel angry. You're going to feel upset. You're going to think, how could this happen? How could the legal process allow this to happen to you? And the reality is, you are going through the legal process exactly how it was designed, to prevent runaway jury verdicts, to go ahead and prevent verdicts that are unintended. And then, after the judge makes his decision based upon those formal written requests, what do you think is going to happen then? Assuming the judge says, no, the verdict stands, you're going to think, yes, I did it again, I won again. I'm waiting for their check. When do they get paid? When do we get the money? No, no, no. Guess what happens? You're going to learn that the defense is going to try and appeal again. And now they're going to go through the same exact process. And here you go from an emotional high right down the roller coaster down to a low. to feelings of despair, of anger, of being upset. And now you're wondering, is this ever going to end? And the reality is that it could end. And let me tell you how. It could end if both sides get together and they say, you know what, this is ridiculous. Now we have two different juries who have told us that your injuries are worth $5 million. Case law, other cases that have been resolved, either by settlement or by jury verdict, with similar types of injuries in a similar type of venue in the county where you have brought this case, this particular jury verdict is consistent with each of those verdicts, each of those settlements. But the defense may say, hey, if you want to avoid going through the full appeals process again, and in all likelihood getting a new trial all over again, what do you say we try and settle this case? Now, your attorney might be open, and you might be open to trying to resolve this case by settlement. They've never offered a dime before. They've never considered settling before. But now they're beginning to realize, you know what? They had two shots at the apple. And now they're worried, are they going to get another shot at the apple that's going to be even more? And if that happens, now they've got a problem. And you'll be in the driver's seat. You'll have a lot of leverage at that point. It's unlikely that it will happen again. However, it still could. But now the defense may come to you and say, you know what, let's try and resolve this case. Instead of having to go through a trial all over again and having to get our medical experts to come in and testify again, what do you say we try and resolve this, and let's go ahead and try and settle this for $2 or $3 million. Now your attorney is going to be upset. You're going to be upset when you hear that they've only offered a fraction of what it was that the jury decided you were entitled to. But at least now, they're open to the possibility of trying to resolve your case. That may be a stepping stone to start the negotiations. And now your attorney can go ahead and engage the defense, and now you might be able to come to a resolution, knowing and recognizing the various risks associated with going forward with a trial. So, why do I share this interesting information with you? I share it with you just to give you a real insight into what goes on in these medical malpractice cases when you hear about people who receive millions of dollars as a verdict when a doctor was careless, when hospital staff was careless, and you think, oh my God, they've made it, they're on easy street now. No, your emotional feelings are only starting, your roller coaster is starting, and it's going to go like this for a long time to come. Why? Because that verdict is just the beginning of your emotional roller coaster. You know, I realize you're watching this video because you likely have questions or concerns about your matter that happened here in New York. Well, assuming your matter did happen in New York and you have not yet started a lawsuit, what I invite you to do, if you still have questions, pick up the phone and call me. I can answer your legal questions. You know, I answer questions like yours every single day, and I'd love to chat with you. You can reach me at 516-487-8207 or by email at Gerry, Gerry, at Oginski-law.com. That's it for today's video. I'm Gerry Oginski. Have a wonderful day.